What's up, archetypal friends? I'm going to talk a little bit fast because I want to cover a lot of things in a little bit of time. Um, Basically, I'm going to be covering not just this red book, but although it looks really cool on this. I'm just going to be going over some books that I want to discuss over the 2021. And this is going to be one of them. If you want to see more of this, like physically, I have another YouTube video or I do like an unboxing of this. But what I'm doing is looking over a bunch of my books. First, I'm going to do some of these physical ones and then go over the Audible and maybe I'll just mention what I have on YouTube. So this one is a biography in books by the same person who wrote the introduction to the Red Book. He is kind of a complicated name, so I'm not even going to go there. But this is kind of similar to what he started with that, as far as giving the overview for what brought about a lot of Carl Jung's writings. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because when I started my whole YouTube channel, Facebook group about a year ago or so, I had been reading a lot of books like these, and I wanted to talk to other people about them. And I did a few videos on those, including one on this that you can find. So those are there, but I want to do a lot more. But I wanted to get a little bit more feedback first, as far as like what people might be interested in, or have people on to discuss things so we can have more of a discussion instead of me just yammering away like this. This is an interesting subject, which is, again, I'm going to be trying to be a little bit quick. Basically, there's the interesting phenomena of the negative aspect of the internet and social media. I'm a big fan of Jaron Lanier. So this book I have read, and I'd be interested to talk to more people about it. Cal Newport is also great. He has Digital Minimalism, and it's kind of along the same lines. Now, mostly, if you know my channel and everything, I'm into the Jungian stuff. So this one is where he was kind of getting to the physics side of things with Wolfgang Pauli. These are actually just the letters between the two of them. This is actually by Edinger, and it's one that I want to get into soon. But it talks about Moby Dick, sort of like a dream interpretation, which is something that Carl Jung would often do. Here's another Jungian one. This has the undiscovered self in it, and it also has one on dreams. What is it? Symbols and interpretations of dreams. Now, by the way, my biggest thing that I've had downloaded is this on audio form, although I just took it from somebody on YouTube, honestly. So check that out. This is an important volume 7 of Carl Jung's collected works, one that I hope to get into with some people. I guess I'll just stay on the Jungian path as I'm going through this here real quick. This one I want to get into right after I finish the discussion of, what do you call it? Jung's Map of the Soul, because this is like a very foundational book. And by the way, this one has a lot of really cool, it's not showing very well, but it has a lot of cool illustrations, and almost all of these you can get on Amazon. I did Stillness is the Key as a review, but which looks a lot like this. I'm letting someone borrow it, so I don't have it here. But Ego is the Enemy is also good. Now, this is I haven't been able to finish this one yet because I don't like it as much as I thought I would. It's just good, but after reading all the Ryan Holiday's books, especially Stillness is the Key, it was honestly a little bit disappointing. But it's good. It's just not as good as I hoped it would be, and so I kind of put it on the back burner for a while. Now, where do I want to go? I'll just mention this real quick. This is interesting because I'm not in the Eckhart Tolle cult or anything, but it's interesting the way he talks about the unconscious and conscious mind and those kind of things that we get into in the Jungian psychology. And my thing with Jungian psychology or philosophy or anything like that is I'm not trying to do completely the psychological path or completely like a new age path or spiritual path. I want to get the values out of it and help people apply it to day-to-day life in sort of a practical way. And on that note, this is one that I definitely want to get into in the next few months or so. I got this when I met the man. He's one of my favorite authors. You can learn so much just from his writing style and his storytelling style for nonfiction. But this has a couple chapters in it, at least 2 or 3, on sort of his rendition of Jungian psychology. He deals with the shadow in one, the anima animus in one, and I think there's one other. Well, there's like Jungian analysis kind of woven throughout here. And since I mentioned him, where did his other one go? This one's a little bit controversial because it's about seducing people, but I really like the psychology and understanding of it because we do this unconsciously and we want to do better at it consciously, or at least understand how people seduce each other, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. This is one of my favorites. Well, I don't know how to rate favorites or anything, but this girl grew up in North Korea. She escaped. She was like human trafficked for a while through China. I had to escape all of that communism and North Korea dictatorship and everything. She's a little bit accessible on social media now, but yeah, it's very well written too. It was written with Marianne Vollers. I don't know anything else about her, but it's just very well written. Her story of escaping communist North Korea. And I guess real quick on the political side, I do like discussing political philosophy as long as there's no things don't get too ideological about it, but that's that. Go down the well, just mention this one first real quick. This is told really well. Conspiracy by Ryan Holiday, who I've mentioned a couple of his already. It's a sex tape court conspiracy, but the way that he tells the story and he gets into the psychology of everything going on and that can go on it was a little bit controversial. Ryan Holiday kind of like distanced himself from it after he wrote it, but this is this. So anyway, trying to get through these quick because I also want to cover the Audible stuff. Anyway, Creative Man by Neumann. Now, if you look at these names here, basically Neumann wrote essays on each of these people. So the Freud and Jung are particularly interesting. Now, Great Mother is mostly about the images. I wish there was another version, maybe a digital version, where we could get these images kind of updated and better versions of them, because there's a whole story of him going through these images throughout history of the Great Mother, which that's like the matrix of consciousness is what that represents. And the Neumann books stack really well with the this one. But this is two parts. First, he goes through the history, the mythological history. This also stacks really well with Iain McGilchrist, or what's Iain McGilchrist? Master as Emissary. So anyway, trying to be quick so this doesn't take too long, and then people can hit me up and we can have more discussions. I'll just mention this quickly, that this is the only book that I think from Piaget, Peterson directly references. And this is people don't realize Piaget and Carl Jung, those who really follow them, of course, the people are critical of Jordan Peterson. And I think he could solve that if he communicated his theory a little bit better, because he kind of communicates it like he's hodgepodge putting together like, hey, look at these theories by Piaget and Carl Jung and some others. But the way that he does it, he really makes it his own rendition, which is fine, but it's kind of like implicit, not explicit, that it's like his own thing. Anyway, I can go in that more detail and more depth another time. But this one, I definitely want to get into. I'm not sure how many like hours I want to spend discussing it, but I definitely want to, probably in the spring. This is one that I just got randomly on symbols, but it would be interesting to talk about symbolism. It's kind of a reference book, but I don't know if we'll really get into that. I just want to get into symbolism. Now, I want to try to quickly go over Audible. Now, when I started this, I was going over Robert Greene's book. So that's, again, kind of like what got me into it after I read his book a couple years ago. And then I wanted to get into it. So anyway, the Robert Greene books. Think and Grow Rich is actually more interesting than you would think, and not just like a self-help kind of book. Again, I'm going through these really quick. This one you saw by Jaron Lanier. We can also talk about the other book by Jordan Peterson, although I'm more interested in Maps of Meaning. But 12 Rules of Life is probably easier to get through, and maybe there'll be a little bit more interest in it with the sequel coming out in a couple months. So we could do that. But basically, I'm trying to have like book club things on the podcast and live streams. Very interested in Noah Yuval Harari, Sapiens, and everything else. Got through Thinking Fast and Slow, and it's okay, but I was a little not a big fan. It's good, but it's just I don't really like the style of how it's kind of just like a list of like academic stuff. I was a big fan of this particular autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., especially because it's read by one of my favorite voices, LeVar Burton, who I was a big fan of growing up on Reading Rainbow. So maybe we can go through that in February or something. More Yuval Noah Harari that I'm very interested in. This, by the way, this guy I was really interested in a couple years ago when I was going down these rabbit holes. And by the way, I had him on my podcast, and I would recommend seeing that or hearing that. And then I am gonna get this blog updated, by the way. So a little side note here. This is one that I actually put on medium.com, but now it's on mine, and I'm gonna kind of curate my stuff from the Facebook group to be on that my own blog format, which will eventually become a book, mainly about the idea of using an understanding of unconscious psychology to improve your day-to-day practical life. Now, again, I'm trying to quickly get through I have like over 100 of these, so I just want to quickly get through these. Some of these I got like for free, so I haven't got through them, but this is very interesting. This is actually a lecture series by Robert Sapolsky. If you're interested in the biology side of human behavior and psychology. Alice in Wonderland, It's Good to Listen to Go to Bed by Scarlett Johansson. More Jungian stuff, neurosis and human growth, kind of interesting. More Jungian stuff, Carl Jung. This is a short one by C.S. Lewis, which of course C.S. Lewis is all about Christian apologetics, but he dealt with the problem of pain, which is very, very interesting. Because people, I think, have a misconception of pain and its place in consciousness and all that. So that would be something interesting to discuss, just even on a philosophical level, not the Christian level necessarily or anything. This is also by Robert Sapolsky. Oh, Here with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. Interesting. Again, I'm trying to be quick because I don't want this particular video to be very long, but there's a lot of Joseph Campbell to get into, a little bit of Carl Rogers. Haven't got into The Believing Brain yet. Man, not too into that. Again, Stillness is the Key is one of my favorite little books that I highly recommend. I did a whole 5 or 6 minute video on reviewing that last spring or so. And by the way, you can go on to my podcast and get me on Audible and even write a review. And look, I have 7 credits available. I will give people Audible books if they want them, if they give me reviews on iTunes and Audible and subscribe to the channel and all that. So anyway, these are some of the more recent ones that I got into. I did the whole anthology. Each of these is about 25 hours. This is the 3rd volume, 4th volume. The Mask of God by Joseph Campbell. If people are interested in this, by the way, I do highly recommend it. He gives his own sort of rendition of archetypes and things. Volume 1, which is on the previous page, it maybe is the best. And then maybe volume 4, I don't know. It's hard to say. But if you don't want to spend all the time to get through them, this is some that I recommend. A couple things. One, listen to, 29 hours. Listen to the first and the last chapter at least, but then the middle part, it's mostly just like a compilation of mythology over thousands of years. So it's interesting, but maybe kind of stuff to do while multitasking. Sorry if I'm scrolling all over the place. Anyway, I'll wrap this up. This one I'm definitely interested in talking with somebody. I've got some psychiatrists and psychologists and people that are into this kind of stuff. So maybe with that, or maybe somebody's just into that book because it's one of my all-time favorites. More Edinger, more Carl Jung, Marie Louise von Franz. Oh, the audio version of In Order to Live. Oh, let me see. Godsad's new book is I do recommend, but it's just more of this whole like anti-woke stuff, which is okay, but that's kind of the whole book right there. It's anti-woke. Bruce Lee's okay, but not all there as much as I hoped it would be because unfortunately he died young. What was I gonna say? Oh, the Red Book has an audio version, which even if you just get through the first part of the introduction, it's worth it. I was just gonna mention this is what I'm working through right now. Jung's Map of the Soul. I'm working through that with Dr. Lahab. So this one we're gonna go through every chapter, so it'll take a couple more months, but usually it won't be that long. We'll spend maybe um, I don't know, a couple weeks per book, maybe 3 or 4 at the most. So anyway, I hope this was enjoyable. But again, it's just because I put the list of 100 or so books up that I've been through, and there's more to it, but I wanted to kind of give that little overview because here's a little side note that is not meant to be necessarily political, but regardless of who's in what political position, or regardless of if we have a perfect vaccine right now, this lockdown stuff, quarantine stuff is going to be somewhat in effect for a long time, just because all this is so global. So use this next year as an opportunity. That's not going to be the case forever, but probably for about a year. That's just the reality. So the reality is start to realize how to put this kind of stuff into our heads, into our dialogue and dialectic and discussion, and then we'll all be better people for it. And I hope this was helpful. But really, what I'm trying to do is engage in discussion so that I can get more people to discuss these books. And I'm not just on here like, hey guys, what do you think of books? But I'd like to have discussions with people. And sometimes I can do that, like just talk about a book. But it'd be better if I had like something to go off, like something that somebody might be interested in. You can email dailyarchetype@gmail.com or connect through social media. I should be able to get that. If not right away, then I'll reply in January because things might be getting busy soon. So again, thanks if you actually watch this, and let's get through some books and become better human beings for it. All right. Stay archetypal. Don't be afraid of ghosts until you get to know them. All right. Have a wonderful holidays and 2021.